Good morning, Internet fans. Ryan Perry here, Simple Biz Support. Today is Thursday, April 14th. Therefore, it is Internet Marketing Thursday. And as usual, I have the beautiful and talented Virginie Dorn with Business Website Center in Petaluma. Good morning, Virginie.
Good morning, Ryan. Happy Thursday to you.
Happy Thursday indeed. We had some rain last night and the sun is out today, which for those local people in Sonoma County with allergies are going to love more rain and more sun.
Yes, and it'll be in the 80s this weekend, so I feel sorry for my clients back east. Somehow it's still snowing in their area, and I'm like, oh, it's going to be like 84 this weekend.
It's rough living in California sometimes.
It is.
What people need to do is just improve the quality of their website so that they can travel or buy that second home in California, and that's kind of what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk specifically to local business owners. So if you have a website that's regional, national, this really will kind of apply to you. But if you have a local business and your website is really trying to target a local audience, say within 20, 25 miles of your physical location, this is definitely the right episode for you to be listening to. And we're really going to talk about, I guess, the tone of voice within the website itself, correct?
Correct. Local audiences, as anybody can imagine, are very different from New York to California. Everybody speaks English, but in a different manner. They choose different slangs and words. The tone of their speaking is different. So when you target a local audience around your brick and mortar office, it is important to understand the affinity within your local audience and cater your content to them, because they are the one buying your products and services. So don't think like Starbucks, which is everywhere in the world. Think like a local business with a local audience, and develop your content, textual content, accordingly.
Yeah, and I think that's really true, especially within major cities, because even, near here we have San Francisco, and even within San Francisco, you have different neighborhoods, and the culture within each of those neighborhoods is uniquely different. And some, especially financial district, and then you get into some of the other neighborhoods, and the culture is going to be completely different, and therefore the actual language that you use should be unique to that neighborhood and the culture of that neighborhood.
Indeed. So it all goes back to understanding your local target audience, something we've been speaking about the last two blog sessions you and I had. So go back to it, make sure you understand your target audience, and then again, design your content accordingly. So there's words that make sense in certain, like you said, certain parts of San Francisco, Chinatown, financial district, very different part of the city, different kind of people buying things in those areas. So understanding the words that make sense. So then again, the idea is to relate to your target audience online, because they don't have that privilege to get to meet you and handshake. It's all done digitally. It's done through a flat screen. There's no personality. They don't get to appreciate your customer service or the quality of your services or product. They just get to see what you provide to them on your web pages. So there's a visual, which we spoke about last week. Today we're talking about the content, the actual text within your web pages. So they have to relate to that text.
Yeah, and I think, the key thing is what I always tell clients is that any type of marketing that you do, and your website is a marketing tool, is that it's really about breaking down barriers. Because if I don't know you, I can't see you. If I walk into a business, let's just use food as an example. If I walk into a restaurant and I can see the cleanliness of it, I can see the type of people that are actually, using the establishment. I can look at the employees behind the counter. I can smell things, and I can make judgment calls as to whether or not this is a place that I want to go to. On the web, it's really hard to convey that same message. And so the question becomes, well, how do I connect with people emotionally? And you and I, we've talked about that a lot, because essentially marketing is about connecting with people emotionally. And if there's specific words, if there's a specific language, you know, if there's all, I mean, there's just so many nuances with the language within a local community that you need to incorporate that into your website, so that people can go, oh, all right, these guys are local. All right, I can trust these guys. This is somebody I want to do business with.
Yes, and if it makes sense to you, copywriting, even include corporate, not corporate, local events, like something happening in the news. Try to keep it a bit in positive, unless, yeah, I think we talked about it before, if you're an injury lawyer, of course you might want to mention the most recent accidents happening in a local freeway. But try to use local places, anything local, famous places, places people like to visit locally, or are very fond of. That's again builds that emotional bond digitally with your prospective customers. So local places, local events, try to participate in local events and mention it within your copywriting. Of course, make sure it makes sense. You don't want to just mention a local town or event just because you're trying to do what we're explaining today. It has to make sense. So just think about it, and there's always a way to mention either a nearby town or even a grand opening for a local store and kind of complementary to what you do. Anything local and within your text will be very helpful.
Yeah, and two things I want to mention on when we're talking about local is also mention the neighborhood that you're in. And then number two, you also brought up copywriters. And a lot of times business owners were typically very dollar conscious. And so we don't understand the value of good copywriting. And we may go online and go to a freelance website and hire the cheapest copywriter we can find. And if that person's from Taiwan, if they're from, it seems to be like a lot of the Asian nations, there's a lot of English copywriters there. And they're not going to have the nuance. They're not going to understand the language. They're not going to understand the local community. So finding somebody locally who understands that to write the content for you, if you're not comfortable doing it, is really a smart idea. It's an investment to make. And, you know, a lot of people will balk. It's like, well, why would I want to spend $300-500 on copywriting? You know, you don't think about it as that one-time cost. If you're going to have that website for 5 or 10 years, you really got to spread that cost, that $500 cost, out over 10 years. And at that point, it's really minor. And over that 10 years, how much money can you generate by having the right content in there versus just the cheap content?
Indeed. And be proactive. Tell your copywriter or your webmaster or online marketer when you are trying to connect with your local audience. Make it a point to mention it to them. Just say, hey, I just watched a webinar with Ryan and Virginie, and they mentioned the importance of connecting. And I want you, since I'm paying you for your service, to make sure that it's happening when you develop my content for my new website. Just tell them you are paying them. You have to give them some direction. Otherwise, they're just going to give you a very neutral, almost sterile content that might look good to search engines, but will miss that emotional connection with your prospective clients.
All right, perfect. And I'm kind of going through your notes here. And is there anything that we've missed?
Well, let's talk about the very important calls to action. So now that the content is great, the visual is there, it's really connecting with your local customers. But you need call to action. You need to tell the local audience what you want them to do next, whatever it might be. Some people, it's, I want you to buy online. I want you to visit my stores on Saturday because I have a special sale. I want you to fill out a form or sign up for my newsletter. Whatever that might be, make sure that the call to action is inspired to the local flavor. So there are ways to use those local words or local slang into your call to action. So when people read it, they almost smiles like, oh yeah, that's funny. That's how we say it here in the bush, you know, whatever the slang is. And you'll see a better productivity on your call to action. People will be more prompt to clicking on it and follow your directions. Again, whatever that might be, you want them to do when they first arrive to your website.
Right. Yeah, that's really important. And it's amazing how many websites don't actually have a call to action. And the reality is most people, I'm going to say most people today want to be told what the next step is. What do you want me to do next? And it may not be consciously, but definitely subconsciously, they need that nudge or that push to say, okay, click here to get a menu, or click here to, buy or check out, whatever it is that you want to do.
Yes, you have to pre-chew their food. That's normal because that's the first time on your website. They don't know how many pages and how deep your website go, and they just know they need to buy something. They just don't know how to get there. So you have to guide them through the process. Before we wrap it up today, there's one thing I forgot is keep it seasonal if you can. So if you're developing regular standard pages or adding content to your About Us page, try to keep it seasonal. And of course, seasons are different based on your region. Some people have 4 seasons, others is like Hawaii, it's sunny all year. And the catch with that, though it's very effective, if it's a regular page, you do have to go back constantly or every 3 months or so and edit that content so it stays current. If it's a blog post and it's a seasonal blog post, then you don't have to be concerned because blog posts by their natures are archived and they go through the seasons of the year and people will understand that. But again, if it's part of your regular web pages content, make sure you give it some seasonality to it based on your local neighborhood and the weather, whatever it might be.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the easiest ways to make sure that you keep up on the seasonality is either have a marketing calendar, or number 2 is just put it into your online calendar. If you're using Google Calendar, if you're using Outlook, just put it in there, update seasonal content for website, and then have it repeat every year on that day. So if you've got to create 4 reminders throughout the year for the 4 seasons, boom, stick it in there, have it repeat on an annual basis so you always have that reminder so it does actually get done.
Oh, I love that tip. I'm going to use it myself. Well done.
You can go ahead and type it in now.
I'm going to copyright it. It's mine now.
All right, perfect. Did we miss anything else?
No, just make your textual content, aka your copywriting, as local as possible when you are trying to target people around your neighborhood.
Yeah, perfect. And try not to sell. People don't want to be sold to. They just want to understand what it is that you're offering, and then emotionally connect with them so that they want to actually come in and check you out.
Yes, indeed.
All right, perfect. With that, that is the end of today's episode. Thank you for sticking around to the end. Virginie, as always, I appreciate the time and the energy that you put into the show.
Well, you guys have a great weekend now.
All right, will do, and we will see you next Thursday. Take care, everybody.